Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Atlantic Council and the Freedom and Prosperity Center, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the 2025 Freedom and Prosperity Indexes. Thank you to all of you who braved the brutal heat to join us in person, and congratulations to those online who took the wise decision to stay indoors. We host many events throughout the year, but this one is by far my favorite. Not only because it represents a full year of research and planning, but because the Freedom and Prosperity Indexes are the cornerstone to everything that we do here at the Freedom and Prosperity Center. Once a year, we take a step back to reflect on what has brought us to this point and to consider what lies ahead. In the words of our CEO, Fred Kemp, we aim to breathe light, not heat, to observe the world through the lens of data and evidence, test our assumptions, and shape policy that transcends partisanship and advances prosperity for all. To all our speakers, panelists, and participants, some of whom have dedicated their lives to the fight for freedom, we're deeply grateful for your presence, your insight, and your willingness to confront the challenges facing the poorest and most marginalized communities around the world. The Atlantic Council is a nonpartisan organization based here in Washington, D.C., committed to shaping the global future alongside partners and allies. Through our Freedom and Prosperity Center, we explore the essential role that freedom plays in human development and work to chart pathways to prosperity, particularly in countries facing poverty, conflict, and instability. I want to congratulate the entire team for producing such outstanding research. Nina, Ignacio, Annie, Will, and Christine, this work would not be possible without your hard work and dedication. Today marks not only the launch of our annual report, which you have a small preview printed available outside, but it's also the update of the index's website. All of our data is publicly available and free to access on our award-winning dashboard. You can explore how countries perform on all of our metrics, compare across regions and peer groups, and it's actually a lot of fun to play around with the data, so I encourage you to go and explore. And if it sparks new research ideas, come and talk to us. We're in the business of ideas, and we want to make this wealth of information as useful, transparent as possible. We have a compelling program ahead. Nina will walk you through the main findings of the 2025 update and annual report. Then we will connect the data to lived experiences through conversation with changemakers who dedicated their lives to defending freedom in their countries. We'll close with a panel on the shifting landscape of foreign aid and development finance and what it means for advancing prosperity in developing countries. It is now my privilege to introduce someone who has been the driving force behind our center, Michael Fisch. Michael is the chair of the Freedom and Prosperity Center here at the Atlantic Council. He brings a rare combination of intellectual rigor, philanthropic leadership, and personal commitment to advancing human dignity. His vision has been central to shaping the center's mission, understanding how freedom leads to lasting prosperity around the world. Please join me in welcoming Michael Fisch. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Guests, colleagues, friends, I'm Michael Fisch, and it's my privilege to welcome you to the launch of the 2025 Freedom and Prosperity Indexes. Today's discussions are animated by many of the world's most pressing challenges: war, poverty, discrimination, climate change, and the lack of access to essential resources and services for so many, particularly the poor and the marginalized. At the heart of our conversation is the denial of fundamental human rights, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion. Defending human rights in all their forms is deeply important to me and our colleagues at the Atlantic Council's Freedom and Prosperity Center. The center's mission is to help improve the well-being of people everywhere, and as I said, especially the poor and the marginalized in developing countries. How? Through unbiased, data-based research on the relationship between prosperity and economic, political, legal, and religious freedoms, all in support of governments and people making sound policy choices. At the heart of our work, as Joseph mentioned, our entry ticket to this debate, if you will, are the Freedom and Prosperity Indexes, which provide a comprehensive overview of freedom and prosperity rankings and trends in 64 countries over the last 34 years, basically almost every country in the world over 3 decades. The data shows a consistent and compelling truth. Countries that protect economic freedom, political rights, and the rule of law perform better for their citizenry across every dimension of prosperity. The urgency of this work is only growing. With geopolitical tension on high alert, our index is showing authoritarianism rising across the globe. It's essential that we continue to make the case for the preservation and strengthening of freedom in all its forms in every country is essential to any particular country's prosperity. This includes the freedom of expression and association, the freedom to vote and have one's vote matter, the freedom to do business, innovate, and create jobs. The newest edition of the indexes and the annual report reveals several striking trends. The global decline of political freedom not only continues, but is getting worse. The world experienced the second largest one-year drop in political freedom since 1995, only behind the restrictions that were provoked by the COVID-19 crisis, minus 1.23 percentage points in 2021, minus almost a point in 2024. Overall, 91% of the world's population lives in countries where political freedom is declining. In global moments like these, it's imperative to reaffirm the proven benefits of protecting freedom. The data says this. While some may argue that freedom has little to do with wealth and prosperity, the data and research from the Freedom and Prosperity Center says otherwise. When countries uphold political freedom alongside economic freedom and the rule of law, they experience stronger economic growth, improved health, education outcomes, greater tolerance of minorities, reduced inequality, lower environmental degradation. Basically, everything good happens. Put simply, freer societies are just more resilient, more innovative, and more prosperous. Yet in times of uncertainty, war, political instability, and/or global crises, political freedom is often the first casualty. Leaders argue that political freedom can wait. But the team behind this year's annual report asks a direct question. Should we be concerned about the global decline in political freedom, and how much does this actually matter? The answer? On average, countries that successfully improve political freedom experience an 8.8% increase in GDP per capita over 20 years compared with their autocratic peers. And that's on top of the other social and institutional gains they achieve. Economic freedom, the rule of law, and political freedom are inseparable. Only through a holistic approach to freedom, creating and reinforcing all freedom's aspects, can countries, societies, and individuals' prosperity increase. This is what the data shows. Today, we'll explore these challenges, as Joseph alluded, using real empirical evidence and data numbers from our latest report. We will also have the opportunity to hear from leaders from the US and around the world who are working to address challenges, whether fighting autocracy in Belarus, promoting freedom in Nicaragua, or mobilizing finance for development. The work that individuals across the world are doing to preserve freedom and drive prosperity has never been more important. As chair of the Freedom and Prosperity Center, and on behalf of our entire team and the Atlantic Council, I want to thank you all for being here today. I also want to extend a special thank you to all our great speakers for joining us, and congratulate the co-authors of this year's annual report, Ignacio, Nina, and Annie, not to mention Joseph. I also want to take a moment to reflect on the progress of the Freedom and Prosperity Center and on the leadership that has made it possible. Dan Negrea, who incubated the key tenets of the Freedom and Prosperity Center with me 4 years ago. Fred Kemp, whose success as CEO of the Atlantic Council and support has been essential these last 4 years. And Joseph Lemoine, who you just heard from. He was part of the founding team that launched the center 3 years ago with Dan, and since succeeding Dan as senior director last year, has furthered the Freedom and Prosperity Center's expansion into a global hub for data-driven research, impactful programming and strategic engagement. Under Joseph's leadership now, the center has not only deepened its analysis and expanded the reach of the indexes, but also forged new partnerships and positioned itself as a go-to platform for those seeking rigorous evidence-based research for policy choices, free from ideology and bias. That can help make the world a better place. Joseph's vision and dedication have been central to this growth, as has his ability to convene the ideas, people, and support needed to carry the mission forward. Of course, no success is ever the result of one person. In addition to the entire Atlantic Council team and our other center colleagues, one of the true pillars of the center is Nina, our deputy director, whose leadership and intellectual contributions were instrumental in producing this year's indexes and annual report. Thank you, Nina. It's now my pleasure to hand the floor to you to walk us through the findings of the newest edition of the Freedom and Prosperity Indexes.
Thank you, Michael.